Giles, Tesco this week paid $12 million to settle a lawsuit in the United States. That's a very small amount of money for such a large company, but there's a much bigger principle at stake here. Can you tell us a bit more?
You're right, it does sound small. I mean, remember the offence, if there is one we're talking about here, is a £250 million misstatement of its accounts that was revealed September last year that saw something like a 12% drop in the stock price, billions wiped off the value of Tesco. So 12 million. Well, one reason it's quite small is this is only being paid to the US shareholders.
So this is the ADR holders?
Yes, the ADRs, the American Depository Receipts. So these people only control about, I don't know, 2% of the stock, 300 or 400 million pounds perhaps. So this only represents 2 or 3% of that value. So why is it interesting? One, there's a similar court case that might be taken by the UK shareholders, the other 98%. If it doesn't succeed, what we've seen is Tesco, owned by all of its shareholders, paying a sum of money to just 2%, which is interesting in itself, the US seeming to have a more litigant-friendly culture over there. But the other question is, what does this really achieve? I mean, the shareholders who are being penalised bought in after Tesco's fell off. They're being punished for this. What sort of incentives does this give them? After all, the offence took place a year or two ago. What is Tesco's meant to learn from this? You can understand why they're just pleased to get it out of the way to focus on recovery instead.
So in a sense, Paul is robbing Paul to pay Paul, as in if the shareholders were there all along throughout the saga, and then the new shareholders are being penalised for something effectively that was nothing to do with them. They couldn't possibly have been holding the company's management to account during that period because they didn't own the shares.
Yes, they didn't know it, so they've been a victim of this. After all, if they were owning it before, they've already been punished, and now they might be having to pay out a fine again, somewhat to themselves, depending on how much they participate in the lawsuit. So it gives you some really quite weird incentives, and it reminds one somewhat of the banking fines. We've had quite spectacular fines for things like LIBOR fixing, for foreign exchange market rigging. And this is hitting current shareholders who have turned over many, many times since these misdemeanours took place. The employees have gone, the directors have probably gone. So for some reason or other, it's seen as a good thing to punish the current owners, even though as if you can reach back through time and give people better incentives to behave in future.
And is there a possibility that this kind of big class action suit, very popular of course in the United States across all sorts of industries, might be sort of getting a hold here in the UK? After all, UK shareholders lost a great deal of money if they own Tesco over the last 2 years.
Well, that is the question, and I would caution before expecting that here. Certainly you don't get the sense from the Tesco share price they're expecting similar kind of action here, even though there is quite a big and aggressive lawsuit brewing. Partly this is because we have a different setup. You have to opt in. Every single person has to be signed up to the deal, whereas you can opt out, so therefore everyone be caught up in the case by default in the United States. They also have case law that establishes quite clearly that when the share price falls after a piece of undisclosed information like this, that's the cost. So it's quite easy to prove, compared to the UK, that an offence has taken place. So don't expect that kind of court action in the UK for any time soon.
Giles, thanks very much.
Thank you.